Phase Zero, Season 2, bonus episode 10. I'm your host, Jen Anderson. BT is having fun covering the Guardians of the Galaxy roller coaster and a bunch of other fun stuff at Disney. So we are all here to talk about Doctor Strange in his absence. I'm joined today by Jamie Jarrak.
Good morning.
Jamie had a very fun morning. You will see why on comicbook.com very soon. She teased it on Twitter, and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. So do you want to mention that at all, or do you want to just save that for the Wanda conversation?
I think it was pretty obvious, but I interviewed Elizabeth Olsen this morning. So it's been a big day. It's 8 a.m., but I am more wired than I've ever been in my life. So I'm ready to talk about this movie.
Awesome. That's a great feeling. We also have Aaron Parrine.
What's going on, guys? A lot of chaos. I don't know last time I woke up with so many mentions on Twitter.
I know.
I woke up and looked at my phone. And I was like, what happened? Oh, okay.
The amount of people who have been clamoring for this episode makes me very happy. It's like, don't worry, guys, we got you. We'll deliver. And then back for the second time in a row, I'm so excited to hear what he has to say about this movie. Is Adam
I
Weinhardt.
am so excited to tell you what I think. Coincidentally enough, I wake up and check Twitter, and my whole timeline's everyone mentioning Aaron. I'm like, what? Hopefully it's okay, man. It was crazy. Everyone's just adding him and mentioning him. But no, man. Let's talk Doctor Strange. I can't wait.
Yes. So we are talking full spoilers for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I will get into it. I still cannot believe this movie exists. I'm just going to say that first and foremost, but I'm so excited to break this all down because having to sit with this for the past couple days and all of the little nuggets is just so crazy. I will let Adam go first since he did not get to talk when we all shared our reactions on Wednesday, and I'm very curious to hear what he has to say. So you go ahead.
So I will admit that I thanks to, the internet and the wonders of digital media, I think I went in knowing most things about it, and it still came in above any expectations I had. So good, guys. So good. It opens up with them ripping out Shuma Gargantos's eyeball. I can't believe they went there, and it just got better from then on. It was delightfully spooky. It had that signature MCU charm and wit and banter. And I jumped and said, holy bleep a lot of times. I'm surprised they went the directions they did. I'm sure we'll get to it eventually, but making someone's brain come out their nose was certainly a choice.
I love it so much. Jamie's reaction just now was basically my brain as that was happening. I know, like, so many people on staff were just laughing at that moment. I know we shouldn't be, but it's just like, it's so well executed. It's so perfect. Mm-hmm. Jamie, do you want to share your spoiler-filled thoughts?
I sure do. I'm so glad I saw it a second time because the first time really was tainted by the fact that so much was spoiled. Of the Illuminati people, the only person I was unaware of is Black Bolt, and I've never seen Inhuman, so I was like, who that guy? I don't know who he is. What's that funny looking costume? His death was so funny. I'm of the camp of people who cackled. Decimate those people. I love it. So that was disappointing. The only surprise for me was Charlize, which was a great surprise. But I'm just surprised that Marvel shared 3 of them themselves. That'll always, and 2 of them a week before the movie comes out. That'll always be shocking and weird to me. But I've moved past my gripes with marketing, and I have seen it a second time. And I can't say enough good things about Scarlet Witch and the Multiverse of Madness. What a great film that I enjoyed very much. Come on, Wanda was just I was a little worried that some Wanda stans wouldn't like the direction that they're taking her, but like, this is what happens in the comics. Girl snaps a little bit. And it's not like totally her fault. She's influenced by this book. She's redeemable. It's not like, I know she killed a lot of people, but Loki killed 80 people in 2 days and we still love him. So, and I'm going to keep pressing that point home. All the Sam Raimi touches were perfect. And it's so funny that people keep calling it scary because to me, it's just pure camp. And that Sam Raimi style that is so entertaining and so great. There are a couple jump moments, but for the most part, yes, maybe 6 is too young to see it. But I saw a big tweet today that was like, it's so gory. It should have been rated R. I'm like, it's not gory though. It's really not. But yes, I enjoyed it immensely. I cannot wait to see it a third time. And I cannot wait to talk more specific details with you all here today.
Awesome. I literally have a bit in the notes that is like, let Jamie get on her soapbox about Wanda. So we will get to that more in depth, but I love what you said already because I completely agree with so much of it. Aaron, what did you think?
I just to reiterate what we did on the podcast earlier this week, I mean, they really let him go. And I was really surprised that they just let Sam Raimi really go ham like the way that he did. Like, I had multiple staffers from both like other Viacom properties like asking me stuff about it, and I was just like, it's scary. Like, it's not, they're not lying to you in these trailers. It goes there, as my Twitter mentions would have you believe. They made some choices. They really did. They made some wild choices. I know in my theater, some of the deaths, there were like nervous, like, wow, that laughter out of people because they didn't know how to take it. So I think that's a good thing that we really are in phase 4 doing a lot of different projects that can do completely different tones from each other. And I've seen some like commentary that I guess maybe they feel like it doesn't do enough, like that we were promised this big like franchise altering installment and this wasn't that. But I think in some small ways, if you really pay attention, there are some really huge things for the MCU like sprinkled in through this movie. I mean, it's wild that it exists. And I think that's great. We are now batting like 80% on I can't believe this thing happened since Endgame. So we're in a good spot, everybody.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that everyone has said. I like to hone in on Aaron's point. My main takeaway now that I've slept on this movie for a couple days, I haven't seen it a second time. I'm very much looking forward to doing so. But like, I still am in the camp of I cannot believe that this exists, both in the sense of Sam Raimi got to do the horror things that he did. These are the 10 like coolest, scariest sequences I've ever seen in the MCU, and they're all in one movie in very short succession from each other. And also just the fact that we are now through the looking glass and the elements of this movie exist and the lore and the setup to Secret Wars exist. I'm in the same camp as Jamie of I was spoiled on a lot of stuff. I knew who all the Illuminati were going to be going in. I knew Charlize was going to be in it, but like the biggest surprise to me was the word incursion. Just hearing that said out loud in a Marvel movie was like, oh my god, we're going to a degree that I did not think we were going to go in this movie. So it was this thing where even though the biggest surprises were spoiled, there were so many little things to enjoy that I just loved it. I've loved it more as I've thought about it, which is the best kind of way to have a look at a movie like this. But yeah, so now we're going to dive into more the plot specific things. I love the fact that Strange actually kind of has a character arc through this movie. I know one of my biggest worries as the rumors started coming out and everything was like, how is he as a character going to be changed by this? Because it felt like he could just be on a carousel of cameos and multiverse stuff and not really have an arc in of himself. But I love the fact that he's kind of grappling with his own happiness and his inner peace and stuff like that. And then Garganto shows up and is chasing after America Chavez and dies almost immediately. I did want to ask Adam, because I know you are a Schumer Gaurav super fan, you are a Rintrah super fan. Both of them do not have a lot of screen time in this movie.
Yeah, it's insane.
I was very curious what your thought was on that.
No, I expected like Rintrah to actually have like a speaking line. I think he reacts to somebody and he still has a Funko Pop. He's the Build-A-Figure with the Marvel Legends. It is peculiar. I don't think they did name Gargantos in the film at all.
No.
No.
So I can't remember who I was talking with, but it's peculiar they didn't do that. It's interesting they didn't do that. I wonder if it's the naming rights issue and they had to put something on the T-shirt to say no, this isn't Shuma or what the deal is. But I mean, I would be very bummed if that was technically the Shuma we've seen in the comics, right? Because that's a being that can like rules the multiverse. Speaking of comics, it is interesting that the MCU is now 616. I think that's in the notes that we'll talk about.
Oh yeah.
I did want to ask everybody's thoughts on that. I personally do not like that. I'm of the camp of like, if you are doing kind of a larger multiverse and you want it to encompass both your live action stuff, your animated stuff, and your comics, it should all be separate from each other. It should not counteract each other. So I'll come to terms with it, but I don't like that. Like, first and foremost, I'm curious what y'all think about it.
It was exciting to hear.
Yeah.
Just because people have like wanted to hear for so long. I know at the premiere there were cheers. It was interesting, like the theater versus the premiere, like and what got hyped. I am sad to say that I blame the leaks and everything, that at my theater last night, the
Mhm.
biggest cheer of the whole night was for Nicole Kidman in the AMC ad. Uh, she got a bigger cheer than anyone in that movie. So I think that tells you a lot about the surprises and how they were spoiled. But I got it. It was just exciting to hear it. I didn't really think deeper than that. And you make a good point.
Yeah.
I thought they had already named this universe.
They
Funny
technically,
enough.
in like Far From Home, I think like
Yeah.
but, like he was lying. Like he was
Well, that's
kind of
true.
just he was making stuff up. So I think it was a thing of like this doesn't technically count as 616, but like now we know it is 616.
Okay.
I don't think. So when MODOK was out and I was talking to Jordan Bloom, I
Mhm.
don't think he was supposed to say this, but he said at Marvel Entertainment there's like an encyclopedia of the actual worlds. So technically, at one point, the MCU was Earth 199999.
That's
I think.
right. Yeah.
So it's the cool Easter egg, but it's the type of thing like Twitter and
Yeah.
the stands and the fans. Everyone's going to be like continuity, and I mean it makes sense because Reed Richards has kind of sort of looked like Jon Krasinski for years, and Valkyrie now looks like Tessa Thompson, and all these characters just magically look like their live action counterparts as soon as the movie comes out, right? So it makes sense. But now,
It is a thing. As a person who loves reading like the Marvel and DC wikis, because they like the MCU counterparts have had the like the 1099 or whatever, like that long classification. So now it's just going to be confusing of like which 616 page for a character are you looking at? Like the classification for all of this is going to be such a mess. I know they probably have a plan. I know they've like figured out they've had multiverse meetings, so I'm sure there's a larger plan here. It's a nice little Easter egg. It's just going to melt our brains, I think, as we get closer.
it's
Secret Wars.
insane we're even like discussing this at this point in our
I know.
lives. Like, who would have thought?
I know. There's so much of this movie where it's like we're gonna have this conversation about this thing. Like this thing is out here now. It's so crazy. But yeah, and then the movie references Spider-Man, but surprisingly not a lot. There's really just one scene talking with America Chavez about like how Strange and Wong do magic, and it surprisingly has very little to do with No Way Home. I know the trailers, especially the one that played after No Way Home, really leaned into the idea of like, oh, Strange casting that spells for Spider-Man is why all of this stuff is happening. But then it ended up being like, no, you giving Thanos the Time Stone is why all of this is happening, which is a very interesting decision. Yeah, what did y'all think?
And then Feige says before the movie comes out on the red carpet that no, it's not either of those things. It's freaking Sylvie stabbing Jonathan Majors. Like, I don't know what to believe anymore. You know?
I didn't even catch that.
Too much.
That's crazy. Yeah.
It's true. Go look, we wrote up on the site and I was like, wait, what? That's crazy.
I was surprised. I just wanted like one little explainer when he was like, we had a thing with Spider-Man and then she's asking questions. I wish he just would have said like, oh, I don't know what he looks like, or I don't know who he is, just to kind of confirm that spell stuck, because I would just wanted to be clear that he does not know who Peter Parker is, because that's how that movie ended. And I feel like it was a little confusing in terms of where he stands. Like he looks like a spider. Do webs come out of his butt?
I love that.
I love a little butt joke. So.
But no, I completely agree. I think they did just enough. Like you can infer it if you want to, but like since we don't know when we're getting Spider-Man content next, it is this question of like when are we going to get a definitive answer on that stuff. And then so America explains her situation. Strange asks for Wanda Maximoff's help in that situation, and then it kind of backfires when he realizes that she is the one who sent Shuma Gargantos and all of these other beings after America because she wants America's powers for herself so that she can get to a universe where her kids are alive and find them for herself. This is where Jamie gets to get on her Wanda soapbox. I'm very curious what you think about this, because I personally was not prepared for the idea of Wanda kind of being an antagonist from the start. I thought she was going to join the group, have a nice little adventure, and then like break bad halfway through the movie, and then that would be that. So I'm curious what you think with them going from that.
It's so funny in retrospect because the trailer really did let us know that she was the villain, but I didn't see it coming, and I loved it. I've talked many times on the show about how I love a lady baddie, and to see, I mean, I brought this up when I spoke to Elizabeth today. No big deal. That like she's gotten to do everything with this character. I mean, there's like every realm of genre and like as an actor, god, just so juicy. But so to see her go this far was so cool. And I saw somebody tweet that this ruins WandaVision and her like arc there, and I could not disagree with that more, because first of all, WandaVision was something she did, Westview did on accident, and she fixed it. And then now it's not like it's like, oh, my trauma's over. It's just, oh, my trauma has deepened. And so yeah, of course she's gonna snap a little, and she has the Darkhold that's making it worse. And because of the Darkhold, it's not like she can't be redeemed. Like I said earlier, there are factors that are going to allow, like no part of me doesn't think we are not going to get a Scarlet Witch solo movie. She's gonna, where she doesn't totally get redeemed. Hopefully find peace. People are like, I think Wanda's dead, and I'm like, first of all, she's Marvel's cash cow right now. Everyone's obsessed with her. They're not going to kill her off right now, especially after that arc. But I just don't understand how anyone could not enjoy watching her eat that up. I mean, I mean, what would this movie be without that performance and without that just, and like the Jack Torrance like craziness of it all? I'm just obsessed with how much, and I just am really surprised that people would say that it like ruins that, because I don't know, I think that's not a very nuanced opinion. And but no, I just, if it, I part of me wishes that we would have gotten an end credit scene that was like teasing the Agatha show, because I really feel like all I want is Agatha to train Wanda like she does in the comics, just like a little bit. But I did love the little button we got, which I'm sure we'll talk later. I know some people weren't happy about that. We've talked about this a million times. Some people don't like jokes, some people do, and those people are me. I like a good joke. So Team Wanda until I die. She's never done anything wrong in her life, and she will never do anything wrong in her life.
Perfectly said. I do agree. It's like, I think it is this thing where we've spoken about WandaVision and like the cultural impact of it on the show before. I think it came at such a specific time and it hit people in such a personal way. And it was the first MCU thing in several years. We all had this communal experience of watching it. And then we had like over a year of waiting for her next appearance. So I think people built up her next appearance in this movie in their heads, and then it didn't deliver exactly what they wanted. And it delivered a different take on her being a villain and coming to terms with her grief that people weren't prepared for. But seeing the swagger that Lizzie has on screen, it is just going from how she was in Age of Ultron to now. It is like, this is the best arc for a character I think we've ever had in the MCU, of just getting to see all of these different shades of a single character over the course of this long amount of time. So yeah, I completely agree with what Jamie said. I think she did such a good job. I know the discourse is going to be super interesting, but it seems like by and large people are really enjoying her performance. Adam, Aaron, what do y'all think?
I think you can apply the discourse is going to be super interesting to anything in life.
Also,
that's a t-shirt. The discourse is
Yes.
going to be super interesting. That's the thing. Maybe it's my biggest criticism of the movie. I almost wish it wasn't like a Doctor Strange movie, because that doesn't necessarily feel like it at times, just with how good Lizzie and both Sophie Gomez were.
Yes.
I mean, no, shade to Benedict, but they just killed it. I mean, he was great too. He played 5 different roles, including a zombie that I laughed at just because how the makeup looked, and he was making the weirdest face. Yeah.
When the frame rate kind of drops out when he's talking in zombie form, it is just the coolest thing ever. Like, I think he kind of knew he had to take her back. He knew he wasn't going to be the like definitive performance in this movie, but he still is so comfortable and is having so much fun that I'm like, okay, you understand what role you're having here. Lizzie is over here just eating everything up, and we love her for it. Aaron, what do you think?
Not to go like nerd hour, but like me and Spencer talked about like Elizabeth's performance in the context of, it's such a like weird meta film geek thing to do, to take her and be like, okay, so we're gonna make her the villain, but how do you go about that? And then to literally make the entire thing this sort of weird meditation on other horror movie villains. Like, when she's walking through the hallways, one of the first things I thought when I saw that teaser, her crushing that Ultron skull, was like, oh, so we just gonna go Carrie, like we're just doing Carrie and Firestarter, like that's what we're doing. All right, cool. And this is a better Firestarter movie than that Firestarter movie that just came out. Sorry, everybody, like it is. She is also probably one of the most terrifying horror movie like antagonist monsters that's been on like screen in a movie that everybody's going to watch in a while too. She fits perfectly alongside like other sort of portrayals like the Alien Queen or like that shark in the Meg. She is terrifying. You should be afraid when they're running. You're doing right. You need to just run. Don't try and engage. Don't try to reason with her. Just run. It's a great flip of that. So I felt like that was really cool. Also, just like Jamie said, I can't believe anybody would think that she was gonna die at the end of this. I know we don't have any confirmation of her signing that deal or whatever that's been rumored that she signed for like 7 years or like whatever, but it seems pretty clear that that's where we're headed. Like, and she had a ton of fun with this before the next time we see her again. She was so good. And it's like a horror thing too. Xochitl Gomez is the final girl.
Yes.
Which is like wild. Like I was like, oh, Raimi, man, you like no wonder they got you up in here. Like we're like, let the master work for a little while. So I was super impressed. And the second that she called her America, and I was like, he didn't say anything about this girl's name. And then he turns, I was like, oh no. If this is one of those weird puzzle box horror movies, like a knife would come directly out from under him and kill him right there. So it was wild. I really enjoyed it.
That's perfect. I do agree to your point. I think like I made the comparison to like Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think this is the type of movie that like I am so happy this exists for the children of the world who are going to see this and become horror fans because of this, because it is this thing of like, this is such a nice entry point. It is the biggest franchise in the world. It is largely very family friendly, but like if you are a middle school kid watching this and you like horror but you haven't really seen it yet, this is such a good jumping off point of like, oh, I really like horror and I'm going to pursue this and I'm going to go watch more. And there's no gatekeeping or like barrier of entry. It's not rated R. You can just absorb it for what it is. And I think that is so great. We always need movies like that, and having it be a Marvel movie and be like biggest movie of the summer is so wild to me, because I think like so many little kids are going to like, oh, let's watch this at a sleepover and get like creeped out by everything. Like that is just going to be the coolest part of it for me.
PG-13 horror is so important for me. When I was 12, it was The Ring. I saw The Ring 4 times in theaters when I was 12. I had never cared about horror, and it changed my life. And I didn't really think about this until you said it. And I love that this has that potential.
Yeah, I also will say, and I know Adam probably has so many thoughts about this, this now has me super confident in the Blade movie, because I think like now that we are at this point where we can get as creepy and as violent and bloody as we did in this movie, when it almost didn't need it on paper, I'm not worried about Blade at all. It's almost the reverse of where we were a couple of years ago. Like, oh my God, the Netflix shows are so bloody and so violent and the movies are super like chaste. And now we've almost flipped to where like, oh, the movies can go there. Adam, I'm sure you have thoughts.
No, absolutely. And that's like the Ultron bought oil and lubricant or whatever it was. I don't want to speak for other people, but I think people just kind of assume that's blood. It's just gross. It's disturbing. She's covered in this stuff because she's mutilating people. This movie is full of examples of how to do, horror right with the PG-13 rating. The moments when she was manipulating the reflections, yes. I'm like, they did not go there. This is incredible. And then the body horror when she's unpackaging herself. It's gross and it's scary. Yeah. There's ways to get around it. They exploded Black Bolt's brain, and that was disgusting. And there was blood for that because it's a nosebleed. It's just stuff like that. It's ways to get around the rating. I mean, Blade could be the bloodiest movie ever. They could make vampire like they did in the original trilogy. I mean, there was the blood rave, but with the exception of the blood rave, the vampires would burn away when stabbed or whatever. I mean, Blade could slaughter thousands and thousands and thousands of vampires. I mean, we've seen Thanos decapitated twice, I think, or something, and his arm got chopped off. As long as there's no blood, Blade could chop Dracula into 14 pieces and we'd be good to go.
Like Trunks?
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's just so wild. So going back to just the movie itself, there's also the reveal that like people's dreams are doorways into the multiverse, which I think is going to have very weird ramifications to you. I'm waiting for someone to go back and look at like anytime anyone has ever dreamed or referenced dream in the MCU, and just be like, was that something in the multiverse? Because I think that's a very cool little thing. Jamie, do you have
I was
thoughts?
trying to remember. I was like,
Mhm.
I was really trying to rack my brain, and now I just want to go back and watch them all so that because there's definitely some dreams that happen, but I can't think of any, and I'm like, but now I need to know.
Yeah,
Has it Cap had a dream of him and Peggy dancing in one of them movies?
I think that was a Wanda
Oh,
Yes.
manipulation
Oh,
Yeah.
and Ultron.
okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm very curious about that because that is just such a cool like little shorthand to showcase the multiverse without really needing to showcase it. And then we have American Strange going through all the universes, like just kind of somersaulting through them. There's the one bit where Strange looks like he's drank Sprite, like that one Drake commercial. There's so much in there. I am so ready for people to just go frame by frame because like we've spoken about it when the trailers came out. I feel like that was the Savage Land at some point with the dinosaurs. I feel like that has to be. There's like the one very neo-futuristic like floating car sort of universe, and now I'm gonna headcanon until we're proven wrong. I'm like, is that 2099? Because I feel like it could be. Like I feel like we could just be setting that up. Because it's like at this point, they had to have like put a little something in there. They had to have sprinkled something that we could potentially like recognize from the comics. And I feel like that's one of those. And just like the paint universe was so cool. And I love the sound design in this movie. I love when they are able to not only let like sound effects get really gross and noticeable, but when they're able to just have things be like silent. And so like when the paint universe and it's just like the music drops out and you just hear that, that was just the coolest thing ever. I was so happy with that. And then it's revealed that America has gone through 73 universes so far in her journey to get to Strange. So then we end up in the 838 universe, which is where the whole Illuminati stuff takes place. We meet Bruce Campbell, who is the pizza papa who sells pizza balls on the street. I was not prepared for this level of cameo. I had my own theories going into this of how Bruce Campbell would factor into this, and this was just so delightful. I thought it was so great, and I'm just waiting for pizza balls to somehow be like sold at Avengers Campus. I feel like the R&D team
100%.
is trying to figure out how to make those a real thing, and they're going to sell them by like the end of the summer, I feel like. But yeah, what did y'all think about Bruce Campbell?
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me? I was just like, Bruce Campbell. Like you knew he was gonna be there, but like bidding himself up. It was just the perfect little Jerry, which is why I guess like if you hate the post credit scene, you're just not like. It's for Sam Raimi fans that, and I think that's awesome because you don't get that a lot in the MCU, like where you really, it's a moment for the director, and I think that's awesome. I love that this week we learned that Sam Raimi calls him baby. I will be thinking about that forever until I die. A part of me was like, I wish he could have been in even more of it, but I think it was perfect, and I think ending on him was a very fun decision.
I completely agree. We dive into America's backstory. She's from the Utopian parallel, which in the comics is this whole kind of separate universe on the edge of the multiverse. It's kind of like ruled by one of Wanda's kids in a weird way. Comics are so weird, you guys. And like, and she lives there. Everything's happy. She gets powers, and her parents, her two moms, end up kind of dying. More recent comics have tried to retcon this and have made it a thing where it's like, oh, she was basically on 616 universe all along and like imagined all of that as a coping mechanism, which I do not like that personally. I'm so glad we went with the fun comic accurate aspect of it because I love the nugget of like her parents are out there. She can go find them because eventually she probably will. Nothing is impossible in the MCU anymore.
That's me. That's me.
All right.
For a second, I was like, do we have a surprise?
Oh no. Jim just crashes in and just like makes the show at midnight, just pirate radio. And then we also get the establishing of Wandagore, which is the mountain that Wanda goes to access the original Darkhold, and that's where so much of the big set pieces are. Adam, do you want to give like the cliff notes on Wandagore? Because I know there's so much to it.
The cliff notes. It's a big spooky mountain. It's like the home of chaos magic. They said the name. They said Chthon. Apparently in the MCU it's Chthon.
I know.
Weird to say like Cthulhu, but anyway, Chthon, whatever you say. That's kind of his base. He's the world's first demon. and they went there. They brought him up. So it's, the Scarlet Witch movie needs a villain, right? Maybe I don't know. Yeah, that's not it, man. It's like the root of chaos magic and all sorts of freaky stuff goes on there. I mean, there's ties to Scarlet, there's ties to Agatha, there's ties to, I think, Bova, right? It's comics, you guys know the deal. Everyone has been to Wondergore at one point. But yeah, that's just kind of the root of all things chaos magic. It is interesting. I mean, we got some kind of pseudo establishing shots, but we don't really know where Wondergore is, right? Is it even in this plane of existence, or where? How do you get to it? I don't know. It's just super interesting how they set that up, and I think it is a mythos they could definitely can and should explore in future shows or movies. I mean, Agatha's on the way. I think they'll go different routes with that, but maybe she has experience with it. I mean, all the sorcerers knew. By the way, it's cool how all the sorcerers had different, what do you want to call it, families, or I don't want to say cults, or like sects or whatever,
Little cliques.
but little cliques, little groups, different vibes, and I like that.
Different like chapters of the same branch.
Yes, chapters of the Order of the Mystic Arts or whatever.
Yeah, I loved you describing Wondergore. It made it sound like it was the hot new vacation spot. You're like, everyone's been there at one point or
another. Make the merch. Honestly, they did it with
yeah.
Wakanda and New Asgard. Apparently, there's New Asgard shirts. Wondergore, come get corrupt.
I have my own theories about where Wondergore is, but I'll save those for the end of the show because they are about kind of like what could come next after this. And then we meet 838 Mordo, who does not hate Strange yet. We then learn that he actually kind of does. He has a beef with the Strange of his universe. It's implied that like 616 Mordo has been dealt with. I was debating about this with Chris and his brother earlier this morning of like, is it just a thing where they either dealt with this on screen or they're saving this for the third movie, or did like the blip just screw up his plans? Because it's like, hey, I can't really destroy Doctor Strange's life if Doctor Strange isn't there. So what do y'all think about
Adam?
that?
What?
You remember us talking about this? This is long ago that I was on nights with you still. Do we want to go like we're full like plot leak dark web internet version of what this movie was supposed to be originally?
I have heard some inklings, but I don't know if we want to go there.
You have to refresh my mind. We talk about so much.
It's nice to be friends.
It is speculated that in an earlier draft of this movie, he tries to run up on Wanda and end all of this before it starts. Right. And she, of course, deals with him thoroughly. And he's gone. But that's not in this version of this movie. So we think maybe he's still out there. Actually, the funny thing is that this Mordo still survives too, from what I understand. He's still in that dick.
I had to message Spencer last night because I was writing up like what happens to the Illuminati and who are the Illuminati. And I was like, did Mordo die? Because I feel like I would have remembered if he did, because every other death is so memorable. And he was like, nah, he just got left in the hole. Like he's just stuck in the hole. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like Mordo just cannot catch a break. He is just so tired.
This is one of my like nitpicky things about this movie, is that I was kind of annoyed that we don't know what happened, because the first Doctor Strange, that's the credit scene, is that he comes up on Benjamin Bratt and is like takes Benjamin Bratt's source of power, and it's like, then we never find out what happens. And then Strange is all like, he hates me so much, but that was just a small portion of that was like the lead-in, and I was really surprised that we got 0 616 Mordo. And I just like, I'm gonna need that loose end tied up. But I do like the theory that like, the blip happened. He's bigger fish to fry. He's given up his quest. But that's I was a little disappointed in that.
And then, so going into the Illuminati, we have spoken about them throughout the show. We have heavily hinted at them. There's so much with the Illuminati sequence in this movie. They operate with the Baxter Foundation, so that is now canon in the Marvel multiverse, which is very cool. Incursions are real. I stated that at the beginning of the show. I still cannot believe I've had multiple conversations with people this week that have basically started with, so incursions are canon now, like, and just going from there, because it is just so crazy that aspect is actually real in this multiverse, and that's what we're dealing with. So the members of the Illuminati are 838 Mordo, Captain Carter, played by Haley Atwell, Captain Marvel, who is Maria Rambeau, played by Lashana Lynch, Black Bolt, played by Anson Mount, an alternate version from how we saw him in the Inhumans TV show, complete with the comic accurate costume. I am so happy for this man. He's having such a good week with the Star Trek show premiering, and now this, of like, to go from the Inhumans show being as panned as it was and as like underwhelming as it was, to now, like, in my screening of critics, just an actual applause break for him as Black Bolt. I was like, this man deserves this. Like, I am so happy for him that he is now in this context. And then we have Professor X, played by Patrick Stewart, and then we've referenced it, we've hinted at it. Jon Krasinski is Reed Richards. He was in this movie after years upon years of people fan casting and hoping that he could play Reed Richards. We finally got it in this context. What did y'all think about the Illuminati lineup?
Great. I wish it was a surprise. You know, and I'm
Yep.
trying to get over it. The thing I have, like, okay, this is going to be a classic Jamie complaint, and it's related to Black Bolt. And I didn't know who Anson Mount was until this week. I asked BD afterwards. I was like, "Who's that actor?" And he had to say it 3 times because it sounded like mush to me. But now that I know who he is, and I think he did a great job in this movie, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be a fan. I think he's great. But I can't help but be a little sour that in a movie that where the main issue is the Darkhold of the shows they could have chosen from, they choose Inhumans, a canceled show that I didn't even see. And, you know, that's my job to watch these things. When Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had an entire season about the Darkhold, how, like, if there was no Inhumans, it wouldn't bother me. But, like, why wouldn't you pull from the show that, like, has its best season is about the Darkhold? Quake, I just wanted to see Quake in that spot, because Quake versus Wanda would have been the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And normally I don't harp on things that could have been, but it's only because of the Darkhold, and it just seems like a missed opportunity. And that, like, all the Darkholds and all of the universes are gone now, and what I'd like to know what that means for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s universe, whether or not, you know, it's still unclear if that is its different universe. You know, we're not going to get into that again. But that aside, it was cool. I think, and nice of them to bring him in and let him do something cool, just like James Yarcy from Agent Carter, because I love Agent Carter, and that show also shouldn't have been canceled. So but it is funny. It's like, let's throw a bone to our canceled shows, people, when maybe they shouldn't have been canceled. I can't speak on Inhumans. I've not seen it. Maybe it should have been canceled. But other than that, it was an awesome lineup. I also would like to say that Haley Atwell looks amazing.
Yes.
Like, I couldn't get over how good she looked.
The live action Captain Carter costume just slapped. I will say, to your point about Black Bolt, I think it was just a thing of, like, trying to have it kind of mirror the Illuminati roster in the comics, because, like, he and Reed Richards and Professor X are all part of that. So I think it was a thing of, like, we have Captain Carter, we have Captain Marvel. They're not really in the team in the books, so this was a little bit more of a bone for that. And again, this man came up with, like, an entire sign language for the show, like, for Inhumans. Like, he put so much effort into that show, and it didn't really get to be showcased. So to get his due now is just so good. Adam, Aaron, what do y'all think about the Illuminati?
Aaron, you want to go, or you want me to go? I had so many thoughts. So, first of all, I applaud the professionalism of Jenna calling Inhumans underwhelming, and not going further than that. Kudos. There's so many decisions. Part of me is so excited because they said Blackagar Boltagon, right?
Yes.
So I was ecstatic, but then they also went a step further to name drop Inhumans again and Terrigen Mist and all that stuff. And it's like they do that to keep Twitter in an ever expanding brawl. I mean, why not? It's free marketing. It's just insane that they did it, and then we're gonna get Miss Marvel where it's not touched on whatsoever. But it's kudos to Anson Mount, man. Marvel could have went every direction. They could have had Vin Diesel, which would have been a huge pop in the theater. But they didn't. They went with Anson Mount, who appeared in the series, and he even got in that one fight with James Gunn. And he still got an MCU role, a bona fide movie MCU role. So good on him. They gave him the arm flaps. That was cool for a little bit.
Oh, that was cool.
They showed the powers. I wonder, what did he there's a moment in the series that he accidentally, spoilers for the series
Mhm.
no one ever watched. I'm not sure if he can stream. He kills his parents. That's his
Yeah.
comic thing. He kills his parents because he's a moody teenager and he says no or something. Or I thought it said I'm sorry, which is how he killed Stephen Strange. But
I
they
think he
gave
said
him
why in the TV show,
right.
because I
Oh,
remember
okay.
my family and I all laughing at that line
Yeah.
and quoting it
Wow.
back and forth for several months.
And it was
when we
just
watched
like
that episode.
little wispy wind things.
Yes.
But then they gave him there's a really good panel that I wish we would have gotten. It might have been Infinity or something of Black Bolt and Thanos where Black Bolt goes no, and it has those blue sonic waves, and that's exactly what they looked like in the movie. The Illuminati, yeah, they all got killed in the most gruesome ways. Like when the shield
Awesome.
was flying back
I
towards Captain
know.
Carter, I'm like, oh no. But that's crazy. The Illuminati's crazy. A million thoughts. I mean, we could sit here and talk for 3 hours on it. I mean, Jenna, you and I share the same exact thoughts on they need Jon Krasinski to play Reed Richards from here on out. Otherwise, it's going to be insufferable with the next guy.
That is
That's
my
what I was gonna
one
ask.
qualm. Yeah, I am now in the mindset of like you cannot put the toothpaste back in the tube now. Of
Mhm.
like you gave the fans who wanted Krasinski an inch, and now they are going to take a foot. And
Right.
I don't know how I feel about that, because I think he's a fine Reed Richards in this context. I do think it is funny how he is supposedly the smartest man in the world, and yet he immediately says what Black Bolt's powers and weaknesses are, and then Wanda can use them to her advantage. But like, I think he's a fine Reed Richards in this context, but he is not fully comic Reed Richards to me. I want someone who's a little bit more smarmy and like confident and is the biggest, like smartest person in the room. There's a really great line in the recent Iron Man run where like Tony has the power cosmic and he gives everyone his intelligence, and like Reed's response is like, I think I just got dumber. And it's like, I need a Reed who can justify play that and do that. And I think Krasinski would be fine. I would come around to it, but I almost want to see somebody else. It's just this weird thing now of like, he is cast, he can exist now whenever they are building the FF, which we don't know at this point now that John Watts isn't directing anymore, how long that's going to take. But like, I don't envy whoever they do cast as Reed if it's not Krasinski, because then they're going to be like, well, I wanted Krasinski and Emily Blunt. Like, you were supposed to give me them, and then you didn't do that. So yeah, what do y'all think about that?
I totally agree with what you said, and like it's unclear at this point, and it's gonna suck for whoever might be the role if it's not him. I'm so fine either way. It'd be cool if he kept doing it, but it'd be cool if someone else did it. What I'm harping on is when Strange was like, weren't you guys a big deal in the 60s? Because okay, so does that mean that when the Fantastic Four movie happens, it's going to take place in the 60s? And if it
Please.
does, how have we never heard of them?
Yeah.
And so Jenna has a help me with that.
So this has been a theory in Chris and I's household for several years of like, if they do FF, how do they explain it in the MCU? Make it partially a period piece in the 60s, because then you can honor the way that they debuted in the comics. You can make it a thing where they go through the quantum realm or the negative zone or whatever, and then it's like interstellar rules of like, oh, a minute passes for them and it's really like a decade out in our world, and by the time they get back to the present day, it's closer to the present and everything has changed, and then they kind of go from there. That is my hope for like how that has been my hope for how they would do the Fantastic Four. You can easily justify why people don't know who they are. I don't know how you do that. Like, it is kind of one of those things of, if you think about it, it's like, why don't people talk about them more? But as soon as Strange, I like jumped in my seat. I was like, oh my God, they're doing it. They're from the 60s. They're not just like kids who started doing this 10-15 years ago, and it's like we're going to have to progressively move the sliding scale. So I loved that. But I can totally get why that would be confusing.
I'm excited at the idea of a 1960s set Marvel movie. I just think like aesthetically and stuff, that'll be awesome. It's just like we've already had like, you know, Captain America, First Avenger, and then we have the Captain Marvel who, you know, started the name of it, and it's like, but there were more in between. As long as they explain it, and I have faith they do, but the idea of that period piece, I think, would be cool.
I think it's a thing where they can explain it as like, these scientists went missing on like a space mission, and like we think they're just gone, and then by the time they come back, it's like, oh, these are actually superheroes, and now the entire world's full of superheroes and they can fight alongside them. Aaron, what did you think about like the Illuminati and the Reed Richards of it all?
As someone who managed to escape most of the spoilers, but our own like weird need to freaking just get every secret out of a movie before it is from the like posters and stuff, like we saw Captain Carter's shield in the posters. Like, I figured because it was a bad look how they did Lashana Lynch that she'd be back, and then they killed her again. I'm happy for everybody who really wanted Krasinski in the role, but I think you guys do have a very, very good point about like you can't unwish like after we've done this, because you're right. We're going to have another situation. I hate to incur the specter of Star Wars where people rage for 2 months after whoever gets cast if it's not John Krasinski and Emily Blunt in those two characters. And it's funny because I'm like, that was probably the biggest cheer in the screening we went to was when Krasinski portal did, and everybody's like, oh my God. And I'm like, if they kill this man, these people are going to be sad. You could hear a pin drop when she made him string cheese. It was terrible. I was like, wow, nobody's vibing with that. I'm like, I wonder what's gonna happen in like a regular theater, because everybody here, it's like somebody died, but no one really died. It was just a movie, y'all. So it is an interesting approach. I admire some of the restraints, because it could have really been a huge cameo fest.
Yes.
You had people thinking that he was going to get there to those pads in front of them, and it was going to be Deadpool looking over him like freaking Seth MacFarlane, like first time, huh? Like, or something weird like that, and that just didn't happen. For the 60s like period piece of it all, I'd be down for that. It's going to depend on who the director is.
Yes.
I also would like someone to get a camera on Brandon Davis when it's explained that they owned where the fucking tower was back in the 60s. And because they went away, civil asset forfeiture led to them building the tower because no one actually laid claim to it because it's been dormant for 40 years. That's going to be great. It's going to be dope. It's going to be, his brain's going to explode. What's up,
That
Jenna?
was the perfect use of our one F-bomb. That was excellent. That was so good. But no, I have to say, I love that we established, like, yes, Sue exists in this universe, yes, they have kids. I feel like they peppered in the kids thing because I'm still convinced we're going to get the kids whenever we actually do the movie of them in the 616 universe.
Man.
Wanda's line about how, like, oh cool, there'll be someone left to raise them when you die was so brutal. That was the coolest like thing I have ever heard. I loved that. The X-Men theme when Professor X rolled up, I had heard that was going to happen. I wish I hadn't, because I would have astral planed out of the theater. I am so looking forward to the day that the first trailer for whatever the X-Men movie is in the MCU, and it uses that as the lick at the end of the trailer, because I will ascend to a new level of being. That just made me so happy. The interesting thing is that it's labeled as the X-Men 97 theme in the credits, which makes me wonder, like, once we get that animated show, is this the exact theme music that we're going to hear? Because the show originally did not start at 97. That's just where we're picking up with the new Disney Plus continuation. So that was very interesting. And then Charles says his just because someone stumbles and loses their way line, which I thought that was really cool. Peggy says, I could do this all day. As we mentioned, everyone dies very brutally. I'm still just in awe of Black Bolt's head popping off. That was the coolest thing.
I wish you guys could have seen BD. Like he could not. He was so shaken to his core that these people were dying. Like at one point, I think he literally went, "Oh my God," out loud. I feel like for those who are visually watching this, like this would have been Brandon's face during the movie, and this was me. Like I was living for the destruction, and I was having so much fun. And like I think I'm pretty sure he liked that too, but I think he was just so shocked by it.
That's what I love about it, is just how shocking it is. Aaron, do you want to say something?
It's just like, it's all out there now. Everybody who keeps telling me that so-and-so thing can't happen, that this won't happen in MCU, like, go ahead and put that to bed. I'll give you a shovel. Like, it's over with. We had like a man's head explode. We had a bisection. We had a man get hit with the cheese grater. We had a whole bunch of stuff. But let's not even talk about, like, even before that, like there was things that was like hinting you before, like when Wanda first lands on the ground in Carmitage and she whoops that guy out of existence.
Yeah.
Or when Sarah kills the Darkhold and she's immolated and turned into charcoal.
Yep.
Like there's like all kinds of wild stuff where I'm like, anyone who tells me now that like they're not gonna do Mephisto because they won't have a devil on Disney Plus or anything, you need to watch this movie. because it's all on the table. Like Midnight Suns is gonna rip because it's gonna be insane now.
1,000%. I do like what we said it on Wednesday, but like the 1 million moms petition and the people who are gonna be like, this is a new satanic panic because my precious Marvel movies have scary stuff in it. Like I know that's gonna happen and I'm almost looking forward to it. And then we have Strange meets 838 Strange, who is kind of the evil Strange. They fight with music notes, which was the coolest thing I have ever seen. Wow. The technical prowess of that. And then Danny Elfman's guitar licks in the last third of this movie are some of my favorite music cues that we've had in superhero stuff recently. That was just so cool. The music notes were just insane. Does anyone have any like pressing thoughts on that? Because
I love that so much. The music was so cool. Just like it's like I was awesome. And Tony didn't like that, and I was like, I was just about to say, he did not like it.
Wow.
I was like, I'm sorry, you're someone who knows how to have fun, so I don't understand this reaction. And like he begrudgingly saw it a second time last night with me. He did not want to, and I was like, so do you have any different thoughts? He didn't hate it. He didn't love it. And I was like, maybe the music was more? No, didn't like the music. It's wild to me because it was just so creative and neat.
This now, like as someone who's also a DC fan, this makes me confident of like use this as a basis for how to show Zatanna's powers in live action, because I feel like you can do the similar sort of thing of like the backwards speaking can be like a physical thing the way the music notes were. That was just so amazing. And then Christine Palmer actually gets stuff to do this time in the other universe. I was so happy for Rachel McAdams. Chris mentioned one thing, and I now in hindsight agree with this. He was sad that she never did oh no he died like game night, because he was like there's like 5 different opportunities where she just said that to somebody. But I love when she's like holding the thing and she's like, go back to hell. Like it was just perfect horror camp. I'm so happy that Rachel McAdams actually gets to thrive in this universe now after not really getting to do anything in the first movie. Strange possesses the dead Defender Strange. As we said, the frame rates are dripping. His face is like half zombified. That was just one of the most surreal moments of this movie. Like, I cannot believe what I'm watching right now. The entire third act is the main character as a zombie, basically. This is just so cool. And then America uses her powers to get Wanda to realize that she's scaring the 838 versions of her kids. Wanda sacrifices herself to destroy Wundagore. As we mentioned, this then destroys the Darkhold in every universe, which is such a cool narrative decision. Does anyone have any thoughts on the ending itself before we get into the post-credit scenes?
I just want to say, I know some people are gonna probably be upset by it's not this like knockdown, drag out thing that all of these movies end up being, but I do like the understated choice of her like America tell like Wanda, like, look, this is how you look right now. This is how you look. And kudos to the 2 little ones for really selling just really weird little childhood innocence.
Yes.
Of like, get away from my mom. Get away from my mom. What are you doing? And I'm just sitting there laughing like, this is exactly like they actually behave, I guess, like, you know, a child would, because I don't even know in that universe, they probably don't even have their powers or anything yet. So there's nothing else they could do. They're just like, oh, well, you know, there's no Incredibles pose to give them their skills yet. Maybe it happens. We don't know where they came from there either, too, because there's no Vision in this entire movie.
Okay, thank you, because this is my let's a quick sidetrack. This is my number one gripe with this movie is that you're not like, okay, I'm sorry, you're all about trying to find your kids. You're not trying to find one universe where your kids and Vision are there. Like all this started because you're heartbroken over the death of Vision, and it doesn't mean that maybe Vision is dead in every universe, and if so, tell me that, because I don't buy for a second that, like, yes, they say that when you become a mother, they become more important than anyone, and maybe even your spouse. But no, I don't like that they really just kind of did Vision dirty and didn't. She mentions him once to Strange, and that's it. And like, is he not in any of these universes? There's I need to know. That's like my biggest complaint.
Nexus point? Like,
I don't know,
right? That's what I was thinking, but like, tell me.
I was thinking about like in the 838 universe in particular, I think it's just a thing of Vision doesn't exist because the Ultron bots are like good and are operating for the Illuminati. So if Ultron never broke bad, then there was not a Vision in the way that we have Paul Bettany's Vision. I also think it's a thing where you could make the argument that like it's the ship of Theseus from the WandaVision finale. Like Vision as himself, as the one that Wanda loves, is the only one who has lived through those exact experiences with her. So it's probably a thing of like, that's a lost cause trying to find a Vision who did the same exact thing. So I'm just going to focus on finding my children, because even then Vision didn't really have a role in creating them anyway. Like Wanda just created them with their magic. So there's a way to hand wave it, but it is kind of a prickly thing once you actually think about it.
Yeah, it is interesting that I need to stop thinking about the multiverse because the TVA still exists, but
Yes.
they're like, whatever, just do whatever you want, Steven. It's fine. But then there's infinite universes, but only the destruction of Mount Wundagore and Earth 616 destroys the Darkholds everywhere. That's what leads me to believe it's like there's only one Wundagore or something, right? Because if there's infinite universes, this isn't the first time Wundagore's been destroyed. Yeah. That's a very little super nitpicky thing, but it's whatever.
I totally get it. Yeah,
I think you're right, Adam. I think it's like Talo. I think it's extra dimensional the exact same way.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's save it for Jenna's.
So here, this is how the Iron Fist movie is gonna go. Hello, Mount Wundagore, Kunlun. These are the capital cities of heaven. Let's do it.
I love it. I will just say, like, to get it out of the way, my theory for where we see Wanda next, if it is like a Scarlet Witch thing or just a group thing, do Children's Crusade. Have it be a thing where it's like somehow Doctor Doom and Latveria, either because they're close to Wundagore or he is aware of Wundagore. It's like, hey, I like magic. That lady did some evil stuff over there with magic. Let me go save her from the rubble and like brainwash her into being my wife. And then you start the story from there. That is my hope. It like in one way or another that's what we're building to, because I feel like the way that her death is set up in this movie kind of leads into that very well. So, yeah.
See, our minds are really synced because you also bring up Doom, and I want 3 to be Triumphant Torment. So here we go.
And then so we need to talk about the post-credit scenes. We talked about Bruce Campbell. That was delightful. Just him saying it's over. Very nice and self-aware. The big one is Charlize Theron as Clea. That costume is insane. Like the amount of color that we now can just have in the MCU, where she is in this like neon purple eye makeup and just super comic accurate costume. I'm so happy. It's like we go from, I don't know if an Iron Man movie can work, to like, here's Charlize Theron as Clea saying the word incursions on the big screen. Like that is just, what a world. But yeah, so she shows up when Strange is walking on the street. She's basically like, hey, you caused an incursion, you have to help me go stop it. I have to give a shout out to the guy who was behind me in my screening, who when we were all walking out was like, I want less multiverse and just 2 hours of Charlize and Benedict flirting for the third movie. And I was like, thank you, man, like you get it. But yeah, so what do we think about Clea? Where do we think she and Strange go from here? Because now that she's here, it's like, that is just so awesome.
I'll say about that scene, because it was so cool and it was the only big surprise for me, so I was so in it. My criticism of it is that it was so cool that the movie ended on that shot of him like freaking out with his eye, and then like 2 seconds later it's like, I'm fine again, I'm walking down the street again, here I am. And like I didn't really like that break of time, because it was such a cool way to end the movie, and then it immediately didn't matter anymore. But aside from that, I'm really stoked, and she's a character that I wasn't aware of until last year when we were all theorizing about WandaVision, and thought that she was going to show up there. So that was kind of a cool thing to be like, all of my WandaVision research finally paid off, and I had some idea. So, but.
So that post-credit scene, to me, I don't want to say it totally invalidates Doctor Strange 1. I mean, there's little snippets throughout. I mean, Christine had a better story arc in Doctor Strange 2. Wong, I think, was a better character in Doctor Strange 2. I mean, Doctor Strange, of course, gave us the origin, of him. But at the same time, this 2 seemed more strangey to me. And 3 is apparently going to be just peak strange because they're going back to the dark dimension with Clea, because I mean, you're not gonna bring her aboard if you're not doing something with it, so it'll be interesting. I mean, does Raimi get a trilogy now? Are they doing the Taika treatment where they had Thor movies, but he's certainly going to get his own trilogy now? I mean, there's Doctor Strange 1, but is Sam going to also do 3 and 4? It'll be interesting to see where we go, because now we're going on full. We got the horror stuff introduced, and now we can, go into the cosmic horrors of the Doctor Strange stuff, like the dark dimension, and that's when we get really weird, messed up things, even more so than a talking green minotaur.
I agree. I also am hoping that this leads to a new Defenders roster at some point. Of like, if he and Clea just form the Defenders, like I feel like by the time we get to 3, we could have a Matt Fraction era Defenders. That would be very fun. But yeah, this movie has so much to unpack. Does anyone have any closing thoughts before we kind of wrap things up?
I just want to say Xochitl Gomez is a little star, and I am so excited that she's here. She did such a good job, and I love, you want to root for young people because it's hard to join Marvel. I think she was 14 when she got cast, and now she's 16, and that's like a hard life to live, and I just wish her all the positivity in the world, and I'm excited to see where her journey goes from here in the MCU.
I completely agree. Aaron, do you have any closing thoughts?
To shout out Benedict, because we didn't talk about Wong. This is like he gets so much more to do. Like he gets so much. He's so freaking cool in this movie. The bowing is like, the customs is, and he's like, I'm aware. Like Benedict Cumberbatch is operating at peak snarky jerk here, and it's very, very good. I think if I had to like make a prediction of sorts, I guess that your Agatha series isn't just going to be her training Wanda. I think she's going to train America too. Ooh. I think that's what's going to happen. I think there's just it's too easy for you to do like a Strange Academy thing with all the young magic users too. Because she's there, and I'm sure you'll get Billy and Tommy around at some point somehow. You know what I mean? And it was just kind of awesome. I'm now rooting for Jamie Jarrak to get her training montage with freaking Catherine Hahn, Elizabeth Olsen. So I put a spell on you in the background as it's going on. So I'm here for it.
I love it. Adam, do you have any closing thoughts? I know once Aaron messaged Strange Academy, I was like,
Strange Academy, go out and buy every issue you can get on. It's one of the best comics Marvel's written in the past decade. I have plenty of thoughts. I know dreamwalking is the MCU dreamwalking is not a real thing in real life, but the concept of dreamwalking exists in some cultures and Wiccan practices and stuff like that. But I am not the guy that stands on the corner that says the end is near with the sign. I am not just that guy. I am that guy with some calculus in my mind, I think. Dreamwalking can lead to Sleepwalker, right? Because listen here, Sleepwalker only moves through dreams, so it's possible. It's possible. The other thing, the Souls of the Damned. If you pick up it's not the latest Ghost Rider from Percy. The second newest Ghost Rider, Ed Brisson and Aaron Kuder. Ghost Rider becomes the King of Hell, and his looks exactly like. Spoilers, Jamie. I'm sorry. His look looks exactly like the Souls of the Damned. Like the Souls of the Damned look exactly like him without the flame. And they mentioned hell, and I'm pretty sure maybe America was dangling Scarlet Witch over hell. That might have been her farm. I don't know. I like to picture it as hell because they said hell like 30 seconds earlier. But Ghost Rider and Mephisto and everyone's coming aboard.
Jamie is so excited by Ghost Rider being the King of Hell. Like, that is just the coolest thing.
It's like, I want to see that, please.
Like, again, this movie is just a feast of stuff that we are going to be able to pick apart and write spin-outs for and talk about on the show for the foreseeable future. And I love that in this movie so much. And it's just so much fun on top of that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening or watching to our bonus episode. This has been so much fun to put together. This has been a great time. You can follow Jamie on Twitter at Jamie Cinematics. You can follow Adam on Twitter at Adam Barnhart. You can follow Aaron on Twitter at Sonic Lake Hornet. You can follow me on Twitter at Hey It's Jenna Lynn. Go read some comics. As Adam recommended some very good ones, just go read some Doctor Strange or Scarlet Witch comics too. There's so much to unpack in there. And yeah, have a good rest of your day. I'm so excited that the Doctor Strange is out in the world. So bye guys.